Are you looking for joy, peace, and a life filled with fulfillment and purpose? Are you wanting to stay aligned in your vortex no matter what's going on around you? Are you ready to live the life that you were meant to live? An extraordinary life?
Welcome to Journey into the Vortex, where metaphysics meets real life. I am Mary Roseman, joined by my co-hosts Marcela and Heather Wells. We are three ordinary women living extraordinary lives. Through our personal quests and years of deep exploration into the realms of metaphysics, we have seen our lives transformed and turned to extraordinary experiences. And we have joyfully embraced the calling to share all these amazing teachings and tools with you, that you may also experience the magic and wonder of a completely different way of being in the world.
Our purpose is to present to you the different paths we have explored throughout all of these years. We will have discussions on the different modalities, the different practices, the different teachers, and we will also share how we have applied these specific principles and tools in our lives, as well as our personal stories of how we have seen our lives transformed in really amazing ways.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. We have a really exciting session planned for you today. Heather, our beloved, is off in California playing in the matrix of a convention for realtors. So we're sending her our love and good energy. And Marcela and I chose to talk about the Course in Miracles because we both share a history and a passion for this spiritual genre. Yeah, and so I'd like to just start off telling you how much it changed my life. But to begin with, you have to know that it starts with a lot of Christian terms, which turns off a lot of beloveds when they first pick the book up. How did you feel? Did you like that part, Marcela?
I'm trying to remember. I think it was the third time I grabbed the book that I stayed with it. The first two times so it just depends how much you know what the course is, right? But I think we talk about it on a previous podcast. But yeah, the Course in Miracles, this channel work that comes to these professionals in medical psychology in the University of Columbia, to researchers, to professors. I don't know there, but we mentioned last week or last time that was really irrelevant because the course is so perfect that as it's channeled work, but the metaphysical teachings are awesome. However, like you're saying, Mary, it is a Christian jargon. It does use the words Father, Holy Son of God, Holy Spirit, brothers, atonement.
God is masculine.
God, yes. And so I did not really have a problem with that. At some point, I started wishing it didn't have it, but I didn't. I know that's not your case, but I didn't have, when I picked the book, when I started reading the book, I didn't have an issue with religion at all. It was okay. Neither good nor bad.
And see, I had no issue with religion per se. My life was not a happy one. I was going through all the motions and I was being this good Catholic woman, right? So I wasn't aware necessarily that I was having issues. And so, like I shared in 1990, when the course became available in my space, I was attending a movie about it at Unity Temple here in Kansas City. And my purpose for being there was to be with another beloved who needed some spirituality and no one would go with her. So being the good, astute Christian that I was helping this woman find some spirituality. And little did I know at the time it was for me, but and I shared, I was bargaining with God on the way home. No, I'm engaged to a Catholic man. I have been Catholic all my life. That is my heritage, and I remain, my intentions are to remain Catholic.
So let me interrupt you. What did you hear during that introduction at Unity that made you think they would conflict? Because at first sight, it does not, right? But as you delve deeper into the course, you realize that the teachings are a little different.
Yes. Well, because they were teaching about love. And I knew in my heart of hearts that God, our Creator, was love. And I knew that the catechism and all the teachings that I had learned as a child just contradicted the knowing that I had as a child what God actually was. So when I heard all of this,
the guiltless,
yes,
the holiness in everybody,
and I'm watching this, and I'm like, this is confirming every instinct that I ever had, not as a child, but as an adult as well. And so, I knew this was
and
threatening
right off the
my
bat,
faith, as Catholics would say.
And
I
think right off the bat, the Course tells you, supposedly it's been channeled by an entity called, that is Jesus, the Christ.
Correct.
But off the bat, Jesus is saying, don't look at me as I am God. I am just like you. We're equal. Everybody, all the sonship is equal. There should not be any what was the word he uses, like praising or what's it called?
Worship. Don't
no
be
worship.
in awe of me.
And so that's very, very different. For most Christian religions, I consider Jesus the Christ is God, right?
Elevated,
or the only
right.
Son of God. So different that the Course will say the Son of God is a conscious. It's all of us, right? Then we decided to become individuals, but we are pretty much just one being.
And see, I can remember being taught that I am the daughter of God. And Jesus is my brother. I can remember being taught that, but then everything else was contradicted because we were praying to Jesus. And this was the movie about it.
And a shame to Jesus because he had to sacrifice himself because of our sins and all this.
Yes. And so we're speaking of all of the issues that were unresolved for me as a Catholic. And so when I actually committed to picking up the book and reading it, the Christian jargon gave me permission to pursue it. And the fact that Jesus channeled this with Helen, I knew in my heart of hearts that all of my issues and all of my crunchies and all of my questions and all of my about Catholicism, Jesus was coming back into the Course and confirming to me that everything that I was questioning was right.
It does have like a perfect explanation of that really makes sense, and you kind of feel in your heart, this is truth.
Yes.
This is true.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now what I discovered, because that was 1990, had the nervous breakdown in 1992, Course comes back into my life again by this one therapist who was dismissing me because my HMO would pay no more. And so she handed me a list of 2 books, Love is Letting Go of Fear and The Course in Miracles. And still, the Course in Miracles at that time was still too complicated for me, but I did find a local group and, sought support. Eventually, I paid for a cassette tape to be delivered to me every month from Anaheim, California, from the Miracles Distribution Center. And what this did for me, and when it was introduced to me initially, I didn't go with it, right? Clearly, 1990, now 92, I had the nervous breakdown. But what I do want you to know, listeners, is once I had this in my hands and I'm reading, I know I'm never going to have another nervous breakdown again. I know that I've got the answers in my hands and that it's a mindset. And if I can switch and change my mind and alleviate these blocks that I've been programmed with, not just with Catholicism, but with life, growing up, with my history. If I could change those blocks, if I could, or those obstacles, then I knew I was on my way to connection. Now, can I say it was smooth sailing? No. It wasn't until 2005. Think about that. From 92 to 2005. 2005 is when I walked away from the Catholic Church for good.
Oh, I didn't know it took you that
Oh my
long.
goodness.
Wow.
This was a long journey.
2000 and what?
5. Yes. Long journey. And so we can talk about the blocks, and that's and it's what the blocks are is that which keeps you from the awareness of love's presence, and if I knew I would pay a high price, I knew my mother would disown me. I wasn't willing to go through all of that. And so what I learned was I was a huge drama queen, and I created drama everywhere I went. And once I really focused on this, and I could see, oh my gosh, why did I have to leave the Catholic Church on such horrible terms as I did? When all it had to do was be a smooth, loving transition. And so...
Why was it awful terms? Because of your family, or because of you probably thought it was? Like, I'm trying to think.
This is why. It was my path to be on this journey, right? And I kept fighting it. And the universe will create whatever the universe has to, God, whatever you want to call it, in order to get you back on your right path. And I was a beloved who had to have a lot of turmoil and drama to make me move on from anything I was supposed to depart from, right? And so the beauty, what I can say, I was one of those rather difficult cases, right? If you look at my history. And so I look back with so much fondness and gratitude and appreciation for Jesus, for Helen and Bill to stick this out, because this material and the way that it slowly helped me overcome my programming, if you will, and just was able to flip that switch where now the awareness and the connection with the divine that I am. Yeah, but it was a long journey. And and so I want to give you, dear listener, just an example, okay, of where it begins in chapter 1. And it's called The Meaning of Miracles. And this is how the course starts, right? Because it has to undo. And so we start by looking at the definition of what my programming taught me a miracle was. And it was an extraordinary event manifesting divine intervention in human affairs. Now, Marcela, you and I, coming from the Catholic Church, we know the big drama and the councils and the committees and the groups that they create in Rome in order to determine, did a miracle really occur here, right? An extraordinary affair, right? And what the Course is going to teach you.
The miracle is internal. The Miracle is not observable. Usually, like most of the time, it's not observable in the physical world. You see the consequences of that miracle. That right.
Right. It's a divinely natural phenomenon experienced humanly, so as the fulfillment of spiritual law. And anybody can experience and create a miracle.
And it goes on to say that, in fact, if they don't happen often and naturally, something is wrong. It tells you.
Right. Because you're blocking it. You're creating obstacles unbeknownst to you. Right? I mean, just think of the way this universe works. It's all a miracle, but we have to be aware of it. We have to acknowledge it. Once you get into the mindset that there's miracles all around you and you acknowledge them, then the juicy ones come along.
The real ones, right? Because it is. I mean, the real. I also came to the course looking for a physical miracle. I think I told a story about my son, right? Like I was looking for a way for him to be normal. He was diagnosed with autism and had a genetic abnormality when he was born. So that's when I grabbed the book again and said, okay, let's see how I create this miracle, right? And the miracle that happened was not what I was expecting. It was so much deeper, so much bigger and greater, right? So, so really the miracle is that undoing of fear, programming, all this baggage that we carry around, creating miserable circumstances, right? And not really living.
And so what it did was it transcended your purview of Ian, and no longer did you see this imperfect, ill, all the labels that they put on this child. You saw the perfection.
Oh, yes. And also open to all that came through that, you know, and it was amazing. It was like, oh, I get goosebumps every time I talk about it. But yeah, and it's just it's transformational at every level, because I mean, people go through years of psychotherapy trying to overcome their issues and their fears and their resentments, you know, their wounds. And the miracle, it really, really heals you in and open and closing your eyes. I don't know what it says in English. When I read the course in Spanish, I remember it says in an opening and closing of the eyes, like that quick. It can transform. It can undo the fear, all those beliefs that are like the false needs of the ego, and just open up your eyes to a completely different reality. Right. Because and you do start creating a new reality, because you know when you don't have those blockages, everywhere you go you create good abundance and just amazing things, right? And the peace, the peace is the best. Yes, and you know that you can tap into, no matter what happens in the outer world, nothing bad. But interestingly, you know, that I think that your world starts to be more harmonious, and because you're resonating less with drama and circumstances that can be upsetting, so you don't create them.
It sounds like you caught on faster than I did.
Well, I bet I'm sure it is different for everybody, but and it also says it's just how much you really want it. That's a key portion of when it says that the miracle can transform your mind in an opening and close in a blink. That would be the expression in English. If you want, and to the extent that you're willing to let go.
And see, she's on the mark. And sometimes, you know, when you see these beloveds who catch on faster than you do, here's the deal. Did I really want it? Even after I had the nervous breakdown, even after I had the material and I had a good support group, did I really want it? And the answer is no. Because I didn't want to disappoint my mom. I didn't. And that's the honest thing. And it's
It's interesting how powerful that
and how painful it was. It was incredibly painful to feel like I was letting her down. And then piling on the guilt and the shame with what I did. Yeah. And so but Course in Miracles would say my journey was perfect. My journey was perfect because every obstacle that I did manage to peel back, and there was, oh my gosh, enough guilt and shame. I was creating these quantum fields that were helping other beloveds walk through it. But it was a long, grueling journey. And I look and I see so many beloveds come into my space. And whether they start with Course in Miracles or Paul Selig's work or Unity, and they transform so fast, I'm just like, wow. and I want to take some credit for that. and I like to think that I really created bridges within the quantum field that other people didn't have to linger like I did.
And the Course says that. The Course does say that whenever you every minute that you spend in that awareness, a lot of souls wake up to that awareness, or you kind of create, like you said, the quantum field, you ease that to happen. You kind of I don't know the word in English, like propitiate. Is that a word in English?
I don't know.
So you kind of bring the right vibe into the world to help those who are not able to see it at that time, and more souls start waking up to that call, to that awareness. So see, it's there's
I know. Yeah. So let's talk about atonement more. And define in your mind the old definition of atonement, or what will Webster say about it? Don't you think it's in a moment of forgiveness when we're atoning for our sins?
I think the
I can't even think of the old version.
Actually, it's a sacrifice that makes you that allows you to have some grace or something, some forgiveness. But there usually comes with the idea of a sacrifice, like they say that the Lamb of God was sacrificed for your sins, so that it was the atonement, right? I think that's how it works in the mainstream, in the Catholic.
Go you!
I think for memory, but it's completely different in the Course. Completely different. Why they chose that word? Maybe to undo all those, crazy beliefs that religion programs you with.
Right. Okay, and so the new definition, not new definition, the correct definition, because Jesus came to say, look, let's get back on track here, it's the undoing. And so what I mean by undoing is it's that moment when I realize, oh, miracles are not just extraordinary events. And with my Christ eye vision, or the vision that Jesus had, where I can see the total picture, I'm able to see them. That's the undoing process. When you realize, oh, this is how I was programmed. And it goes really deep, especially with guilt and shame we were speaking of. Really deep. Because I was a cradle Catholic. It was my heritage. I did not necessarily want to be the chosen one to break that beloved heritage, if you will. And the guilt and the shame, it just went so deep. It felt like I was betraying the generations, if you will. Yeah. And so there's just, and then when it got into parenting, if you're reading something in the Course about control, we'll say, and I could see, wow, I need to change the way I parent. I'm parenting the way I was parented, and I certainly didn't like it. And that had to be so confusing to my daughter at the time, because I'm reading this and I'm changing while she's going in elementary school, And one moment I care about what the neighbors think or what the teachers or the school thinks, and then the next moment I don't. And I'm trying to teach her not. It was so confusing. And if I had a difficult time about it, imagine, children just want to blend in. And that's part of the programming. We want to blend in. And for many years, I was teaching her how to blend in, how not to rock the boat.
Really?
Yeah, sure I was. And she had a great sniffer for bullshit, And she would call me on it sometimes, but I always had the right answers, And that was how I parented for a long time. So.
Sometimes I wonder, and I've asked myself this question, what would have, well, I started with the course when Ian was very young, like right after he was born, very soon after he was born. But I always thought that I would have, I would be the perfect mother, because I could teach so much, teach my child so much and make them so smart and all these things, all this, ideas I had of how a wonderful parent I would be. I never had the chance to try it, but I'm glad now I didn't, because I would have, program all that into, because then you have two people who want to break from those, those paradigms. Mm-hmm. So, of course, with Ian, it was completely different, right? Mm-hmm. He shake my paradigms. So
right. Oh wow. And so one thing about the course, y'all, is we do not have to look back at our past. Our past was it was meant to be. It was meant to flow the way that it flowed. Okay, so what I would like to focus on are the lessons. And do you remember your reaction to the first time you read lesson 1? Okay,
it's just so...
For the listener, I'm going to do lesson 1 is nothing I see in this room, on this street, from the window, in this place means anything. So this table in front of me does not mean anything. Okay? And so, so it didn't resonate with me at all when I first read it. I was like, what the heck are they, But we followed the rules. We followed what they suggested. Read it, contemplate it, and don't give it another second thought. Just keep reading it.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I would say to the readers who are, who think that, the listeners who would like to do the course, start doing the lessons, because just go through those first, once you get to lesson 10, I guess, it starts
making sense.
Let me see. It really, lesson 8 starts having some meaning, because
yes.
you start figuring out, okay, this is where they're going. They're basically trying that to help us understand that it's all in our head. Like, we give meaning to everything. Mm-hmm. We see only the past. We see this because this is called a table, because this is. So that is like a great. After that, you start really understanding. When you get to lesson even 7. So the first 5.
Well, okay, we were speaking about our programming of Catholicism, right? So now when you get into the lessons, you're learning about the programming of the body and the senses, how the senses can program you. Because keep in mind, Jesus came to channel this text so that you could become aware and see through his purview, see the world as he sees it. So in order for that to happen, you first have to undo the way you are using your senses. And so these first lessons where they're saying that table really has no meaning to it, what it's teaching you is all the concepts that you have learned, they only have the meaning that was given to you. And the reason why the Course is saying is they don't have any meaning is because we're trying to open you up we're trying to increase this awareness, chip away the blocks, and increase your awareness of seeing things differently. And so if you can look at the concept of the table and know, I know that's a table only because I've been told that's a table, right? And now I'm putting the meaning to the table, right? And so one of the examples I always give by the time we get to lesson 3, do you remember, I think it was in the late 70s, early 80s, and these holograms came out, and they were pictures, and the picture had this pretty little pattern on it. It was just so cute. It looked like wallpaper or something. And then if you looked at it and crossed your eyes and then looked at it again, a fish aquarium would show up. Do you remember those? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they were called holograms. And that was that's the example that I can give you, that Jesus is trying to show you, that there's so much more to your awareness than what you're seeing. So if you're only looking through the purview of the concepts that you've been taught, you're going to miss things. And that's the whole practice of them. And so it goes through...
or even see things that are not there, because, when you want to see something, you're going to see it. So if you're only going to one direction, then looking for something that...
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's just, I just can't tell you how majestic this book was and how it just slowly unfolded. The book goes from the concepts that you see, and now we're going to, I'm never upset for the reason that I think. So now we've kind of set the sense of seeing aside, and now we're going into the feelings where I'm upset. I'm never upset for what I think. And what Jesus is trying to do is bring you into the fact that, again, you're this program being, and now you've been triggered, and you think that you're mad. I think I'm mad because Marcela looked at me a certain way. Wow. Ooh. And Marcela's probably thinking of something else, right, as she's looking at me. But I'm creating this whole story in my head because back in 2 years old, my mom looked at me a certain way when I spilled my milk. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, all self-conscious. And I'm thinking, what have I done wrong, right? You're never upset for what you think you are, for the reason that you think. And so...
And that is a big one, because even when you don't have, even when you are done with the triggers like that, like the example that you gave, sometimes I found that there's something that is bothering me, right? And I kind of push it aside and start doing other things. And all of a sudden, I am upset at something that really has no reason, should not make me that upset. And I start projecting that, or kind of like thinking or dwelling on that, when really, if I sit, or if I sit in the morning or whatever, you realize there's a lingering fear, something that you need to address. Correct. That it's not what you have in front of you. It's something else. And once you clear that, all of a sudden, you don't even care about what you thought you were mad about or upset about. It's very interesting.
Very liberating.
Yes.
And the thing is, once you acquire this skill set or this awareness, the sky is the limit. You would not believe how much time you're wasting. And, okay, I'm talking to myself. I could not believe how much time I wasted fretting over something so, and I'm not going to call it trivial, but once I confirmed, where these feelings were, I could put them aside and they no longer anchored me. And then I could go accomplish what I needed to accomplish. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have more energy, because there's a lot of energy that goes, in dealing with those negative emotions, fearful.
Right. So I hope that you can feel the magic that we're talking about as we describe this book. And if you're one of those beloveds who have bought this book and it's been on the bookshelf for years, months, collecting dust, you're not alone. You're not alone, because I have picked it up, you know, worked with it for a few months, and then put it down and walked away from it in disgust or whatever. And then I picked it up again, and I'll start again with it. It's not unusual, because speaking for myself, there are just periods of time in my life when I just needed to give it a rest. But what I didn't realize was I was putting the book down because I couldn't go beyond anymore. I had to take the current content that I had been reading and studying, and I had to go live and experience it and let it sink in. And then a few months later, when I pick it up again and I'm reading the same thing that pissed me off, that made me throw the book down and go, what the, you know, and I'm like, oh, now I'm ready. Now I'm ready to receive more. You see, we don't realize as human beings how much and to what level we've been programmed. We totally identify with this human body, and we don't acknowledge, you know, any divine that we are, any ounce of the creator that we are.
One thing I would like to say, when if for those that are interested in either go deeper with a course or starting it or whatever, is that and the first lessons, which we were talking about the first lesson, but I don't know what lesson it is, but they start asking you to dedicate more and more time,
Right.
and that's when the magic really starts to happen. The course talks about the atonement, but it also talks about revelation as this pure communication between your higher self and your creator. And I am not saying that you're going to hear the voice of God. Well, they call it the voice for God, and I can say I could call this the voice for God, but not in the way that we think. You're going to hear a voice, and the man with the white bear is going to talk to you. No, it's an awareness that all of a sudden, it's a state of consciousness. I think it's a very elevated state of consciousness that happens when you are doing those moments that you set your intention about listening and asking. And it is, I don't know, there are really no words to describe it. And I think even the Course says there's no words to describe it. But once you experience that one time, that's going to be the anchor, you will never forget that moment, right? And you will never go back, and you will only want more. And so practice, really make time to practice. Sit, do your lessons, ask for that moment of revelation, of connection, because there's nothing to describe those moments.
Right.
It just, everything wipes off, every negative thing, every fear, every error. You feel like so holy and so perfect, like you really are, even if it's for like that split second, right? That holy instant. That's enough to really get you going and wanting more. And it's like huge. It's really magical.
So the revelation that she's speaking of, it's this experience, and this experience is when all of the blocks, all of the obstacles, all of the struggles, all of your history, it's not important anymore. It's not important at all. And it's this revelation that I am not this human being, you know, struggling to pay bills, doing my 8 to 5 gig Monday through Friday. I'm Mrs. So-and-so, mother of so-and-so. All of that just suddenly becomes irrelevant. And you realize that you are so much more than your humanity. And there's no need to fear, because in this revelation, you know, you have your humanity, but you have your humanity now in such an elevated state. I want to say humanity on steroids, if you will. And everything falls in place within the human realm. But now you've got this peace of mind about you. Now you've got this knowing and this alignment with your divine. That's what we're trying to convey to you. And
I think you said that the key, and it's a peace that it just feels so good.
right.
Yes.
Because there are no accidents. You know, everything that's occurred to you has occurred for a purpose. It's gotten you to where you are right now. And that's a hard pill to swallow if your life has been full of one trauma after another. And I get it and I understand it. And I can say I've had my share of that. But I've always chosen not to surround myself with the drama, with the trauma. It's just this realization, if you will, that I am the creator. And so if I've got trauma going on, if I've got a shit show 24/7 going on around me, the common denominator is myself. And what Course will teach you is you are a creator. Period. Case closed. End of story. You are a creator. Whether you're aware that you're a creator or not, you are creating. And I got this piece of information and I'm like, I'm creating this mess.
Well, the Course talks about we create either, well, we were created to create with the same attributes our Creator, which are through the extension of love. We extend love and we create, right? But when in this free will that we were given, that's tiny mad idea that we could create separately, that we could separate from our Creator and create, when we started creating by projection, with all these beliefs, all these fears, all these, the what they call the distortions, right? That the miracle is going to heal. But the distortions make us create by projection. And boy, we could create big messes. So it's about realizing how are we creating too, right? Do we want to continue creating based on the projection and not have those distortions healed? Or do we really want to ask for the miracle and the atonement and heal and create the extension of love? Oh, we can create wonderful things that way. Everything is wonderful, I think, at that point.
Right. And it's not by any means a straight shot.
Right.
You know, I regressed many, many times, but that's okay. As long as you're going forward and as long as you're learning. Oh my God, I just made an ass of myself. Okay, what am I going to do? You know, before I would either continue on with the drama and make it look like I'm the right person and, you know, or am I going to stand in my integrity and go apologize and make this right? And there were many times I would be like, so many times in the past I go, can I have a do-over, please? I can do this so much better. And it would shock people, shock them. But they liked this, and then they started practicing this as well. It's okay for us to react, you know, because we are human and we're going to experience our humanity. But we, with this new awareness, with this revelation, we know better. And the reality is going to come back to you sooner than it is later. And it's just all about making it right. Yeah.
You spot the errors faster and and then you are also kinder to yourself. When you do that, maybe sometimes that's because you're giving yourself an opportunity to forgive yourself. You say, okay, well, you see it right away, no big deal. And so it's a fun journey. It is a fun journey. So I guess to wrap up, that's, you want to say something else? Or
no, I feel complete. Yes.
So yes,
thank you for joining us.
Do your lessons and dedicate time to this because it's going to change your life in ways that you would not even imagine at this point. So
thank you for joining us into
Journey into the Vortex.
We hope you have enjoyed today's dialogue. Please do not hesitate to let us know if you have questions, suggestions, or simply want to connect. You can reach us through our website at journeyintothevortex.com, Facebook, or Instagram. We hope you will join us again as we continue this transformative journey into the vortex.